So if you've ever worked with electrical enclosures, you've definitely seen these codes pop up, NEMA and IP. And, it's pretty easy to just assume they're interchangeable. But are they really? That simple question is exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
I mean, this is the classic question, right? It's something that trips up even the most seasoned pros. You're looking at a spec sheet, and it just seems logical that these are two different ways of saying the same thing. But, as we're about to find out, making that assumption can lead to some, well, let's just say some pretty serious and expensive mistakes.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the whole NEMA versus IP question. Then we're going to decode what those protection codes actually mean. We'll look at how they're tested differently, which is key. Then we'll tackle the big one. Can you convert the ratings? And finally, we'll walk through how to choose the right enclosure and touch on the standards you'll see around the world. Okay, so at the very heart of this whole thing, you've got two completely different philosophies coming from two different organizations. And understanding that, well, that's step one. On one side of the ring, you've got NEMA. That's the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. They're the standard bearers, mostly here in the United States. And on the other side, you have the IEC, or the International Electrotechnical Commission. They're the ones who set the IP rating, which is pretty much the global standard. So you can kind of think of it as America's standard versus the standard for the rest of the world. All right, so what are these codes actually telling us? You see the letters and numbers, but what's the story behind them? Let's break down the language of protection here. Think of a NEMA rating like it's a decathlon for an enclosure. I'm serious. It's not just testing one thing like how fast it can run. No, it's a super comprehensive evaluation against a whole bunch of different environmental hazards. We're talking dust, water, ice, oil, even corrosion. It gives you a really broad, all-around picture of how tough that enclosure is. Now, on the flip side, if NEMA is the decathlon, the IP rating is more like a series of specific individual events. It's laser-focused. It only cares about two things, and that's right in the name. Ingress protection. Protection against solids, like dust, and protection against liquids, specifically water. That's it. And the beauty of the IP code is how simple it is to read. The first number, that's a scale from 0 to 6, tells you all about protection from solids. The second number, from 0 to 8, is all about liquids. So let's take our example, IP55. That first 5 means it's dust protected. Not totally dust tight, but close. And the second 5, that means it can handle low pressure jets of water hitting it from any direction. Simple, right? Okay, so we know they measure slightly different things, but the real difference, the thing that truly separates these two standards, comes down to how they're tested. And trust me, this is where the details really, really matter. And this right here really sums it all up. The IP standard, which is officially IEC 6059, is basically built on just 3 types of tests: protecting people from getting zapped, keeping solid things out, and stopping water from getting in. NEMA's approach, though, is way, way broader. I mean, just take a look at this list of extra stuff NEMA tests for that IP doesn't even touch. We're talking about resistance to corrosive stuff, how well gaskets hold up over time, which is huge, protection from industrial oils and coolants, and even whether it can survive ice building up on it and taking a hit. These are things that are absolutely critical in a ton of industrial settings. And just when you think you've got it, NEMA throws in another little detail that's super easy to miss. Let's call it the X factor. Pay attention to this one. If you ever see an X at the end of a NEMA rating, like NEMA 4X, that X is a huge deal. It means that enclosure has gone through specific, really tough tests for corrosion resistance. A standard NEMA 4 rating, it doesn't have that guarantee. If you're in a washdown area or a coastal environment, that little X is everything. All right, so now that we've got all that background, let's get back to the main event. Can you just, swap one rating for another? Is it that easy? So let's circle all the way back to where we started. You've got a NEMA 12 enclosure in your hand, but the spec sheet calls for IP55. Can you use it? Are they pretty much the same thing? And the answer, in a single word, no, not even close. They are absolutely not equivalent. And here's why. The easiest way to think about it is like a one-way street. Because a NEMA rating tests for so much more, a NEMA enclosure can often stand in for an IP-rated one. It meets the IP spec and then some. But, and this is the important part, you can never go the other way. An IP rating tells you nothing about protection from oil or corrosion or ice. So you can't just substitute an IP-rated box when a NEMA rating is specified. Okay, now let's actually look at a conversion chart, because this is where it all clicks into place.
Now, there's no perfect one-to-one conversion, but this shows the closest IP equivalent for a given NEMA rating. And look, our original example, a NEMA 12 enclosure, is not equivalent to IP55. It's actually much closer to an IP52, which only protects against dust and light drips. That's a huge step down in protection from an IP55.
Okay, enough theory. Let's make this practical. How do you take all this information and actually use it to pick the right enclosure for what you're doing? It's really just a simple three-step process. First, you've got to know your environment inside and out. Is it indoors or outdoors? Is it a clean space or a factory floor? Second, make a list of every single hazard that enclosure is going to face. And be specific. I'm talking dust, drips, high-pressure jets, oil, you name it. And third, just match that hazard list to the rating system that actually tests for those things. So let's make this super concrete. A NEMA 12 is your go-to for indoor industrial settings. Think about control panels, motor drives inside a factory, where you mostly just need protection from some settling dust and maybe a few light, non-corrosive drips. But an IP55 enclosure? That's built for tougher stuff. Outdoor equipment, or maybe indoor areas that get regular washdowns with low-pressure water. See the difference? All right, one last thing before we wrap up. Let's quickly peek at the official documents that govern all this so you know exactly what to look for when you're checking a product certification. It's pretty straightforward. In the US, you're looking for a UL 50 or 50E certification. Up in Canada, it's CSA. And for any IP rating anywhere in the world, the global gold standard is IEC 6529. These are the codes that prove the rating is the real deal. So, now you know. The next time you're specifying an enclosure, don't just grab a number that seems close enough. Ask the right questions. Really analyze the real-world hazards your equipment is going to face, because choosing between NEMA and IP isn't just a tiny detail. It could be the difference between a project that runs smoothly for years and one that fails when you can least afford it.